Never-ending horror. A story of a pastor sentenced to death by firing squad. Zebkin Zaharov, chair of the Kharkiv Human Rights Group, International Conference, Life Term Important, and Taras Shevchenko, Kiev National University, to be imprisoned in our country, which was modeled and built in such a way that the one could only best describe it as, I don't know, never-ending horror. Especially, as you know, there were enough of incidents where people received death penalty for the crimes they did not even commit. Those stories are famous enough, even for the crimes of serial killers, like the story of one of them where, only in Ukraine, for his crimes were convicted 19 people. Natalia Siza, candidate in law science, senior lecturer, and chair of the law department at Taras Shevchenko Kiev National University. Particularly, the absence of the certain procedure in the work frame of the national law system that could possibly give an opportunity to review some of the court decisions made in the past where the deadline for appeal had passed. Viktor Shyshin, former judge of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, we limited the authority of the Supreme Court to be the highest judicial authority. Arkady Boshchenko, Supreme Court judge. As a matter of fact, currently in Ukraine, the Supreme Court has, in fact, to be responsible for the whole judicial system to act fairly. It has no power to review certain court decisions that were made, in our opinion, with certain shortcomings or certain mistakes. This is not only a question of establishing fairness by giving the opportunity to the convicted person to petition for case review, but a question of country sovereignty as well. Andriy Didinko, program coordinator of Kharkiv Human Rights Group, one can certainly say that there are no acquittals in our country, that without correction of the court's mistakes, it is impossible to build an efficient judicial system. Even, let's say, that one person is convicted to the highest extent of the law, to the life sentence, and is innocent, then the responsibility is on each of us. Yaroslav Mysyak, pastor, sentenced to death by firing squad. For about 2 years, I worked as an assistant to the bishop of the Ukrainian Church of the Christians of the Evangelical Faith in Zakarpattia region. Meshach, YG, Public Prosecutor's Office in Ukraine, Prosecutor's Office in Zakarpattia region, criminal case number 610-2098, about charges brought against Mr. Mishak Yaroslav Grigorgovich, sentenced for someone else's crime. It was a regular day. I worked with my father that whole day, and I was woken up by my father, who came home not by himself, but with the policeman in their car. He notified me that a tragedy had occurred with our relatives. Snezhana Mishak, Yaroslav's wife. And then, when Yaroslav returned from grandfather or grandmother's place and said they were murdered in a horrible way, frankly speaking, I simply froze as my first reaction. Yaroslav, I was not ready for this. I never would have thought that I would be in a position where I would turn from a person who was trying to help to a person who would be blamed for the crime in the eyes of the people who conducted interrogation and realize that they just wanted to close this case. Magdalena Mishak, Yaroslav's mom. Yaroslav was led out, accompanied by a convoy. It was scary. There were like maybe 20 people, I don't know. The street was closed. Public transportation was stopped. Dogs. Yaroslav, when the judge was reading my sentence, at that time I already felt as if that sentence has executed me by shooting. Yaroslav's mom. I have a picture where I cannot recognize myself. During those 5 days, we haven't been eating or drinking. I was getting ready to lose my son, but inside me, my heart was crying out that my son was alive. According to the Article 93G, ZH, of the Criminal Code of Ukraine about exceptional means of punishment, death by firing squad. Volodymyr Vasilyevich, after studying all the volumes of the case, we noticed a lot of violations, screaming violations. In our opinion, if they had been caught at the time of the examination of the case in 1998-1999, we really believe that the present verdict was not possible. Yuri Vakula, Yaroslav's lawyer. Yaroslav's lawyer was appointed in such circumstances when he was appointed 15 minutes before first interrogation. For me, as a lawyer, I cannot understand how come that lawyer could be appointed 15 minutes prior to the investigation. How could that lawyer possibly have enough time to receive certain authorization, as at first the order had to be issued? How he appeared in the precinct when the interrogation was already in progress. And especially that lawyer didn't ask any single question there. Volodymyr Zelensky, Yaroslav's lawyer. This is alibi that was ensured, that was given by Yaroslav's wife and nephew. Their testimonies were not taken into consideration. Yuri Vakula, Yaroslav's lawyer. Of course, testimony exists. The alibi was provided, like by his wife. She provided one. Even if the court thought that alibi to be false, the burden of proof was on the court. And if something was found, then it could proceed with the charges for falsifying evidence. Yevgen Tishenko, witness for Yaroslav Mishak's alibi. I am convinced that Yaroslav couldn't commit that horrible act because he was at home at that given time, and I saw it. And I am convinced because I have seen him. Volodymyr Zelensky, Yaroslav's lawyer. The court, as well as the prosecutor, tried by all possible means to avoid that testimony because it interfered with their line of investigation. Yuri Vakula, Yaroslav's lawyer. All the evidence in this case doesn't point to Yaroslav Mishak. Vice versa, allegedly, everything in the case, everything that served as basis for the sentence points to his innocence rather than to his guilt. One must understand that different searches in different locations were conducted based on the same authorization. Yaroslav's wife. When the search was conducted on the 31st of March, the inspectors and the field operatives haven't found anything. But the next day, allegedly, Yaroslav showed them bloodied objects located at the place where they couldn't have been missed the first time. Volodymyr Zelensky, Yaroslav's lawyer. The knife that, allegedly, was given them by Yaroslav could not have possibly caused the wounds, if one took into consideration their width and depth. Yuri Vakula, Yaroslav's lawyer. Look, the expert in the framework of criminal case determined falsifications of Yaroslav's signature. Let's say there in a first record of the examination of the crime scene in the criminal case is one sheet of paper written in different handwriting. Volodymyr Zelensky, Yaroslav's lawyer. Really, by the lawyer's request, we conducted independent expert evaluation that excluded possibility of accepting that knife, which was allegedly submitted by Yaroslav Mishak as material evidence. We think that the main reason is indisputable facts and findings of the newly discovered circumstances that without appeal are worthy of our attention and obligate us to cancel court's decision and review it, even though they are inconvenient, because the court decision was made in 1999. The signature was basically falsified, as confirmed by the handwriting expert, meaning the signature was not made by Yaroslav. Just imagine that in the case materials with the highest punishment measure, death, somebody allowed themselves to sign certain documents for the suspect. Yuri Vakula, Yaroslav's lawyer. Even with such totality of all the evidence, the advantage to the prosecution is zero. With that, a person can get life sentence. It goes without saying that Yaroslav got death sentence. Volodymyr Zelensky, Yaroslav's lawyer. As a matter of fact, the case for sentence review for Yaroslav Mishak's case based on the newly discovered evidential circumstances has been in the process of review for 6 years in a row. Anatoly Kozachok, the first assistant to the bishop of the Ukrainian Church of the Christians of the Evangelical Faith. As it happens, the case materials point to his innocence rather than to his guilt. And yet, that man is behind bars for more than 22 years. Olesha Mishak, Yaroslav's daughter. For me, my father is a hero of faith, because even being in such circumstances, enduring all the horrible things, such injustice, he was able not simply to remain a human, but also bring the love of God to those people who had no chance for salvation in the first place. Yaroslav Mishak. During the time of my punishment, I called all possible institutions, all possible courts, several times to prove that I was innocent and have nothing to do with this crime. Anatoly Kozachok, the first assistant to the bishop of the Ukrainian Church of the Christians of the Evangelical Faith. God will not bless society where its lawmakers are unjust. God will not bless society where human rights are broken. Yaroslav's wife, I'm simply asking to sift through the materials of this case. Stanislav Kasparov, head of the publishing company Smyrna. Once there was a woman on this planet, Mother Teresa, the receiver of the Nobel Prize. One time, she was asked by a reporter how she could do so many good things for the humanity. But all the powerful people of this world, none of them could do as much as she. Mother Teresa gave the following reply: they do those things for the humanity, but I do them for the particular individual. I would say to a member of parliament or president or whoever one might be, do something to a particular individual and it would serve the humanity. In 2000 to 2002 in Ukraine, the number of acquittals was almost zero, 0.02%. Acquittals in the USA and Europe are at 17 to 25%. 2021.